Okay, so let's get started. I want to welcome everyone to the Infragistics technically 17.0 release webinar for our brand new product launch, which is focused on Xamarin, which is pretty exciting. I think there's going to be a lot of neat things that you see today. We look at this as sort of a groundbreaking release in terms of what we're releasing to the market and really how we're going to help developers like yourselves be more productive using Visual Studio building native mobile apps. So there's a ton of great stuff, and this is going to be a really demo-focused webinar. I'm going to do some slides, but I'm going to cut to the chase pretty quick and get over to a couple of our guests today. So we have two special guests. Brian Lagunas, who many of you know, he's been at Infragistics. He just celebrated his 5-year anniversary. He's our senior product owner, everything XAML. So if you think about what we ship in WPF, what we ship in UWP, what we're shipping in Xamarin now, he really is the guy where the buck stops as far as how we get this product to market. So he's on board. He's going to do a really great demo today of some of the new things that we're shipping. And also joining us is Carl Shiflett, who's our senior platform architect. And his focus at Infragistics in the last year has been really focused on developer productivity tooling, which is a big emphasis of this release. And Carl was previously at Microsoft and did a lot of work on Expression Blend and Visual Studio back in the mid-2000s and brought to you a lot of the productivity tooling that you actually still use today. So we've got a couple experts on board today. We want to make this a real interactive session, so make sure you use the chat window, and we'll leave maybe about 5 minutes at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So let's make sure that you take advantage of using the questions box during the webinar. So we're looking at this product release. It's going to actually be available for you to download on Monday. It's called Ultimate UI for Xamarin. And previously, if you're an Infragistics customer, we're doing a slight rebrand. Our products were essentially, it was Infragistics Xamarin, Infragistics Windows Forms, Infragistics Android. Well, now it's just Ultimate UI for Xamarin. We sort of simplified it, went with our Ultimate brand. So when you go into your My Keys and Downloads on Monday to download the product, that's actually what you're going to see and what you can grab. And we're looking at this as the complete toolkit for building fast, beautiful, native apps on mobile devices. So when you think about what Xamarin brings to the market, you can use your C# skills and you can write the application in Visual Studio and then output to your targets in iOS or Android natively. It's a very compelling story. Now, the neat thing is the framework is shipped by Microsoft. So Xamarin was a company that was on its own. It was very innovative. Microsoft acquired about a year ago. So now there's a lot of focus on the Microsoft side to make this the premier way to deliver mobility in the SMB and in the enterprise. We're looking at this launch as really a game-changing release for the Visual Studio mobile developer. So if you need productivity, if you need to build your very first mobile app and you're not a mobile expert in Xamarin, by the end of this webinar, you're going to be super relieved because Infragistics is really going to make you a hero in your company. We've built some amazing tooling that's going to help you deliver applications bigger, better, faster, and stronger than you've ever been able to do before with Xamarin. So that includes, of course, lightning fast UI control. So we're really good at that. We've been good at that now for almost 30 years. When you think about where we really shine, it's grids and charts that go really, really fast, and then all of the supporting components that make up that UI. The new thing that we're shipping here is this WYSIWYG design tools for Xamarin Forms. So when you're building a Xamarin Forms application, we're giving you a bunch of tooling that really expedites the creation of that application so you can visually configure the UI components. We've built a toolbox that helps you drag and drop things out onto your XAML editor. We've built a tool called the App Map, which allows you to visually take whatever's on your whiteboard and stick it into your application very easily through WYSIWYG drag and drop, so you don't have to think about all the code you need to write and all the navigation you need to create for your mobile app. So this is really where we're going to focus a lot of time today, is what those tools are and how to use them. And then the other cool thing is, you'll notice on my last set of bullets here, is this is not only from the controls perspective for Xamarin Forms, but we're also shipping Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android. So based on the type of app that you're actually building, we have you covered in terms of the platforms that you are targeting. So this screen sort of summarizes what I've said here, but there's a couple words above the screenshots that I want you to kind of think about and sort of get into your head as you think about what Infragistics is really doing for you as a Xamarin developer. And that is write fast, run fast, and then looks great. So this whole webinar today, we are going to talk a lot about how we will help you write applications faster. And that's our goal, is when you power up Visual Studio and you want to start a Xamarin app, right now you're like, okay, I think I know what kind of project to create, and then you're kind of staring at this empty XAML page and you're like, where do I go next? So what do? You scour the web and you try to figure out, you know, what step 1 is and step 2 and step 3. We eliminate all of that, and we're going to get you up and running very quickly. And the run fast is about our components. So this is where, like I said, our sweet spot, really high performance widgets. When you think about grids and charts, and you need high performance, high volume data on not only what we've done in desktop and web, but now on mobile devices, we help you there, and we're leading in the market there. And then finally, looks great. We have beautiful controls that can be styled as you like, but we're also shipping a pretty amazing showcase sample reference application, which we'll talk a little bit about today too, and I'll show you where you'll be able to get that. So when we talk about the app map really maps out your application's entire flow. Brian is going to do a comprehensive demo on this in a second, but the idea that you could get here from my animated GIF is that without you really thinking about inside Visual Studio how I'm going to create all my pages, you can do it visually with the app map. Totally revolutionary, totally time-saving. The best part about this is it's backed by Prism, which is best practices MVVM focused framework. It's open source. It allows you to, we actually obfuscate the complexity of Xamarin. We auto-generate all of the code, and we give you all the navigation, the hamburger menu, the carousels, the tab UI components that you would need in a typical application without you writing any code. So Brian's going to have a pretty exciting demo on this, and we think this is something that is going to really change how you think about designing your first application in Xamarin. Secondly, on the write fast side, we're shipping the world's first NuGet-powered toolbox. So this is pretty slick. When you open up your Xamarin Forms project, let's say you create it with AppMap, and you pop open your XAML view, what you get is the Infragistics Xamarin Forms toolbox. So this includes all of the Xamarin Forms layouts, views, controls, etc., as well as the Infragistics components as well. So it's all powered by NuGet. Whatever you have from Infragistics in your solution, in each project, will show up in the toolbox, and you can use a simple drag into the XAML editor to take care of this. Now, why is this so cool? Well, anyone who's done Xamarin development knows there's no toolbox. There's literally no way for you to get started easily. You have to know what namespace references are. You have to know what you have to type into the XAML editor to instantiate the component on the form. So it gets actually pretty complex if you're just starting. This alleviates all of that pain. The nice thing is we've added some delighters to it, and I'll let Carl go over that in his demo, which will get you pretty excited. And then finally, the third piece of Write Fast is the visual configurators. So the screenshots basically tell the story. When you think about how you have to visually configure, actually configure a component inside a Xamarin app today, it's a lot of typing. It's a lot of looking at API docs and help docs. It's a lot of trying to figure out what can I do with this component. But with our visual control configurators, right within the XAML editor, you can pop up a dialog which allows you to completely customize your components with things like presets, custom brushes. Based on the component, there's different options, but the idea is we want to take away the pain from you to build a super rich application, and we want to bring you back to why you love Visual Studio in the first place. Visual Studio is all about productivity. It's all about delivering fast and time to market, and those write fast pillars that we're shipping in 17.0 really talk to that. So now when we go to run fast, let's talk about components. So really, this, again, we're shipping 60 plus best of breed controls. This is what you know and love about Infragistics and where we've actually shined over the years. So we have an Excel library, we've got charts, we've got grids. We're doing another follow-up Xamarin release in the May-June timeframe, and we're going to ship even more components. But when you install our product today, you're going to have a whole bunch of great productivity UI controls and components that will help you deliver the type of line of business apps that you need to deliver in your enterprise today. And when we talk about the performance of these components, you know, the big thing when you're thinking about mobile apps and how things render on the screen, it's all about not only the amount of data, but what is the frames per second? How smooth is it? I mean, we're getting anywhere from 30 to 60 frames per second in a mobile app with high performance data rendering, which is almost unheard of in the market. Now, granted, you probably don't need several 100,000 rows of data in your chart on your iPhone, but if you do, if you have some crazy requirements, we can actually support that for you. So with that, I'm going to do a quick demo, and I just want to kind of highlight what I just showed in the slides as far as the run fast portion of this. So let me go and open up Visual Studio. And here, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I'm going to let Brian and Carl really show off the productivity tooling. But what I did want to demonstrate here is the samples that I'm going to run right now and how simple the XAML is to get them going. So one of the things that we really focused on with our 16.2 release last year, and now that's bleeding into the 17.0 release with Xamarin, is the simplicity of the API and really rich controls like our charting components. So here we've got our XAM category chart, and honestly, the only piece of information you need to get this chart going is to set the item source. I don't need to tell it what type of chart type I want to render. I don't need to tell min and max values. I don't really need to set any properties. What we've done with the category chart is we've optimized this to the point where you throw a data source at it and we intelligently figure out the type of chart that you want to render. And that works well in the 80-20 rule. Like 80% of cases, that's going to work perfectly. What I wanted to do in this case is really show the performance of the chart. And in order to eke out as much performance as possible, I set a few properties so the chart is already kind of going into its job knowing a few things. So I already said, hey, I want you to render a line chart. The max value is going to be 1,000, the min value be 0, don't show marker types, and set my zooming to true on both horizontal and vertical. But at the end of the day, if you think about what it takes to get a chart onto a screen, literally it's a few lines of XAML, and as Carl's going to show you, it's a simple drag and drop from the toolbox. So I want to get a radial gauge onto my screen, drag and drop, select a quick set, do a little binding, and I'm done. Same goes for the grid. So if we look at the grid, whoops, let me go to the grid XAML. Super simple here. I have my grid XAML, so I have my IG data grid, and this is the XAM data grid. This line of code here is sort of the key. I'm saying auto-generate columns equals false. This works just like our WPF grid and our JavaScript grid. If I set this to true, I wouldn't need any of this XAML because it would just go and splat out all of the columns in the data source. So it would just intelligently go look at the schema and it would render the grid the best it can for this. Well, my data source has a bunch of fields and I really don't want to render 8 or 15 fields, so I just want to render 4, so I make it real easy. And in this sample, and by the way, all of these samples are online. I'll show you that a little bit later in the webinar. It's super simple. We have a data source component, and all we're doing is grabbing the Northwind data service. And so this is like a real live, no smoke and mirrors demo showing you how to, basically use the components and set them up pretty quickly. And then finally, I have a third demo that I'm going to show you, and this is called the stress test. This is a cool example Basically, I took that concept of the category chart and I just added 3 different category charts with 3 different data sources with a couple different properties set on the screen, so you can kind of go to town and see, hey, how many charts can I really render on a screen? How much data can I get into these charts? And these charts are each showing a couple series. They have, I believe it's 200,000 rows of pop. So this is like over 1 million data points. And you can actually go in here and you'll see that I've got a bunch of different data sources, so you can set, you know, a couple more charts on the screen and actually see how it behaves. And so all this code is pretty clean, and all of this was built with the app map tool as far as laying out the application that Brian is going to show in a minute. Of course, we wrote all the code, but the app map did sort of the heavy lifting. So let me show you now what this actually looks like when I run it. So I'm not going to put you through the pain of hitting run on my Xamarin app. I don't want to spend a minute of you watching it build and loading up the emulator. I have the emulator started already. So let me just pump through these samples real quick. So I have my screen down to, let's see, it's a 768, I think, resolution right now. So it's not super crisp. This is a high-res emulator, high-res phone choice. So as you boost up your resolution, you actually get a better view, a better, crisper look at the charts. But you can see here, I've got 3 charts on the screen, and even with 3 charts going at, you know, well over 1 million data points, I'm getting 13 frames per second. And the other thing that's actually killing a little bit of this performance, normally this is up in the 30s, is a GoToMeeting is actually sucking up a bunch of my resources as well. But if I rotate my screen, one of the things that hopefully comes across in the GoToMeeting is that you have a super smooth animation that occurs, so that we're really not missing a beat in what's happening here. The controls run super smooth. There's no choppiness or blockiness. And like I mentioned, these are available for you to download. I'll show you where to get them, and you can run these locally yourselves and kind of get a feeling. And then secondly, the high frequency demo is really interesting as well. What you'll notice here along my x-axis is that I've got a frequency of data pumping through the chart, and this is 10,196 data points. What I want to do is bump this up to something crazy like 373,000 data points times 2. So this is 750 some thousand data points pumping through the chart. And notice as I'm zooming into this, it's a perfectly smooth zoom. Like there's no choppiness, no blockiness. And as I zoom into this level, you'll notice even with the GoToMeeting sucking up my computer, I'm at 15, 18, you know, could be up to 20 frames per second, and I'm getting a very super smooth animation. And then we can go crazy and go all the way up to 500,000 data points per series, and I end up actually, let me do that like so, and let me jack this up to 500,000 data points, and that adds it in, and you can see here we've got so much data, but it's still faster than the eye can see or faster than you can count. We're actually seeing our upticks here in data, and the more I zoom in, the higher frames per second I get, because we're actually rendering less data on the screen the more that you zoom in. And then finally, I want to show off our remote data sample. This is really slick. You'll notice when this first opened up, there was the little gray boxes. What we did here is sort of the Facebook sort of thing, where if the data is getting pulled from the data source, you can template what displays in the cells, and it makes it really nice. But now what I'm going to do is I'm actually using my finger. I'm on my Dell XPS 13. By the way, this isn't like a super machine. It's an 8 gig of RAM. There's nothing special about it. But as I scroll, you can see that the data is pumping in as fast as I can scroll. So with our virtualized grid, column virtualization and cell virtualization, you have the ability to literally have an endless data source. And of course, this can support templates. So if you want to have something like a sparkline or a chart in a column and render that, you can still have a really great experience for your users for really any type of rendering that you want. So that's a sort of a view of the whole run fast story. Again, Infragistics is really good at building high performance, high volume, really robust components for the enterprise line of business apps, and we're continuing that story now with Xamarin. So with that, I am going to change the presenter, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Brian, and he's going to now talk about our app map component and walk you through a demo of that. So Brian, I am going to unmute you, and I'm going to mute myself, so take it away, Brian.
Great. Can you hear me okay? All
yes,
right.
We can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so hopefully everyone can see my screen right now. Before I get into app map, I want to kind of point out for people who are new to Xamarin where the pain lies, right? Because we're all about solving pain. So what we have here is Visual Studio 2017. I'm creating a brand new mobile project, and this is what you would normally get. This is the experience that Microsoft gives you, right? We're going to get a cross-platform app. We'll say, okay, we're going to get this little dialogue. You're going to pick your blank app or master detail. You're going to pick Xamarin Forms, right? You can host in the cloud, all this great stuff. But the problem is that it's going to kind of just create a very plain Jane basic application. So this is essentially what you get. You'll get an iOS, Android, UWP project. You don't have any choice in this. You just get it. They just give it to you, right? And then you have an empty project. In this case, it's a portable class library, and all it gives you is a main page, right? So if you're new, you're like, man, all right, I got to start creating my infrastructure. I got to create my views folder, my view models folder, because I'm using MVVM like a good XAML developer would. But now I got to have these basic. Man, I just got to start from scratch, add new item, add new page, add new view model. It's time consuming. So this is where App Map was born, right? So now when you install the Infragistics Visual Studio App Map, you're going to say File, New Project, go to Infragistics, and under Xamarin Forms, you can have an App Map project. When you select this, the first thing you're going to notice is a new project wizard. This is going to allow you to choose what platform you want to target, because maybe you don't care about the other two platforms. And in this case, UWP is not in V1. It will come later in probably the October-ish timeframe when we stabilize the UWP product. So in this case, I'm on a Windows machine. I'm only going to pick the Android app. And then here's a little combo box, right? It says DI container. Now, a lot of you guys are like, okay, what the heck is a DI container? So when we were building App Map, we had to make a choice, right? We didn't want to just generate a whole bunch of code behind and bad practices and horrible code that's just hard to test, right? We don't want to do that to you. We want to set you guys up for success right out of the box. So we looked out there and we decided that, you know what, Prism for Xamarin Forms is the best application framework to write Xamarin Forms apps. So we decided we're going to standardize on Prism, which is also open source. It's part of the .NET Foundation, so it has a lot of backing. But Prism relies on a container, right? So right now it supports AutoFact, Dry, IOC, and Inject in Unity. Pick what you want. If a container's not here, it's not a big deal. You can add a container, no problem, okay? So also notice this little checkbox that says Show App Map. So now I'm going to only create an Android project, and I want to show the App Map. So now my App Map dialog is going to be displayed, and this is where I speed up my app development, right? I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to drag a content page over. Now, it's the first page on the screen, so it's automatically set as a main page. So if we look at the property grid on the right-hand side, I can see, yep, it's a main page. And look at this, it's wrapped in a navigation page. What's that mean? Well, in Xamarin, a good practice is to wrap your main page in a navigation page, because on iOS, there is no hardware back button. So there's no getting back if you're not using some type of navigation-based navigation mechanism, right? If it's all modal, you're stuck. Okay, so by default, your main page can be dragged over. And you know what? I'm going to say this is my login page, right? So login. And then let's say my flow says, you know what, if my login fails, I'm going to go somewhere else to, like, you know, fail login, or maybe this is more like add user, right? I'm going to sign up for a new account, whatever you want it to be. Now I have these two pages that are going to be generated. Now I'm going to say, how do I get from page A to page B? Well, in the toolbox, we have some relationships. I'm going to say that I'm going to create a navigation between the login and the add user page. Now, you have to be somewhat familiar with how navigation in Xamarin Forms works. I know, based on this icon, that this is wrapped in a navigation page. this is what this icon means. So anytime I navigate from this page to another and down the line, they will all be wrapped in a navigation page automatically. You don't have to do anything. That gives you that software back button, okay? But let's say that I have a successful login, right? And I want to navigate to like a master detail page. So we'll call this, I don't know, what do we want to call this? Index, whatever. Call it whatever you want. Okay, so once we have this named, you're going to notice, look, we have an error because a master detail page requires some type of child navigation. It requires a detail, right? You can't have an empty detail. So I'm going to name this, let's say products, and I'm going to say the master detail page navigates to the product page. And you know what? I'm going to add another one, and maybe this is customers, right? And this one's also going to navigate to customers. But now how do I get from my login, on a successful login, to my detail? Because the scenario here is, you know what? When you log in, that login page has to be removed from the navigation stack, right? I need to reset the stack. No problem. Because we're using Prism, Prism has what's called an absolute navigation. So we'll use an absolute navigation to essentially reset the entire navigation stack, and now this is equivalent to main page equals new index, right? So that's what this equivalates to. Now, I want a hamburger menu. I'm in a new navigation stack. Now, if you use Xamarin Forms, you know the only way to get a hamburger menu in a master detail is to select the connection and then wrap that in a navigation page. There's the icon. I know this is wrapped in a navigation page now. I'm going to do the same for the customers, right? So this is going to give me my hamburger menus and any of the back buttons as I navigate through the rest of my stack. Now, you know what? I want a tabbed page. Let's call this like product details. And of course, we have an error. The error says, you know what? You got to have some children. So let's add some tabs. We're going to define some tabs now. So product details, we can just call this info. How about product info? Product info. And we can have another one we can call product, I don't know, map, whatever you want to call it, right? We're just making stuff up. All right, next I'm going to say these pages are children of the tabbed page. So essentially this is going to relate to an actual tab item inside the tabbed page. So here we are creating tabs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create some tabs. And I can even control the order of the tab. Like I can make child order, like I'm going to make the product map the last one, so 0, 1, right? So that's the order that they're going to be generated. Now, how do I get to the tabbed page? How do I get to product details? Well, I'm going to navigate from products to product details. And let's say I have some weird scenario where I'm on a customer, right? And then I can also navigate to product details from the customers page. But in this case, I actually want it to be in a toolbar, right? I want a toolbar item for this navigation. So I'm going to make sure this item is selected, and then I'm going to click this is toolbar item. That will put it as a toolbar item in the page, okay? So we're going to go ahead. We're just going to double check this. Yeah, this looks pretty good, right? Quick flow. And before I generate this, I just want to come over to the code generation options, right? We know that not everyone codes the same way, but we do provide some defaults. So you'll see that by default, when we generate your views and your view models, we're going to put them in separate folders. Your views are going to go into a views folder. Your view models will go into a view models folder. And we also provide a very basic application view model base class. So app map view model base, okay? Now what's really cool about this is we have a more advanced one, and you can also choose from your own if adding to an existing project, which I'm sure I'll have time to show you in a minute. Now, you can change this. You can say, you know what, my view folders aren't called views. You know, maybe I don't like the plural, or maybe I call them pages, right? Whatever your convention is, you can make it. You can say, you know what, I don't want my view models in a separate folder. I like my view models nested under the view itself, right? So you have a lot of options you can do here. So now I've basically mapped out, I diagrammed out my entire application flow and how I want it to work. So now I just sit back and I hit generate app map. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to nibble on this this Pop-Tart, and I'm having it for breakfast while Xamarin goes ahead and we create these projects. We're going to create the Xamarin PCL, the Xamarin Android project. We're going to add all the NuGet packages, and then we're going to go and we're going to generate all the views, all the view models, all the navigation code. We're going to add the base model, view model classes. We're going to do all that work for you so you don't have to. It's a huge time saver. I do a lot of demos, I talk a lot of events, and I use this all the time because it's so fast. Even when I support, I have to support bugs in Prism or issues or helping people in Stack Overflow, I can reproduce someone's app in just minutes because they describe what they have, I drag and drop, I generate, and then I can try to duplicate what they have. So this should be finishing up pretty quickly. As you know, Android has a ton of NuGet packages to add. Okay, here we go. So as you see, let me just minimize that. We now have all the views, all the view models. We added a very simple base class here, okay? We have all the view models here that all derive from our app map view model base, which you can override and change. And we have all the views. For example, if I look at login, I'm gonna open up the login page, we can see that I have a label that says login, a button, add user. Remember, we're saying we're add a user, so navigate which page we're navigating to. Here's our master detail called index. It's an absolute navigation, right? All the navigation code is laid out for you. Also, because we're using Prism, this is a Prism application, and Prism requires pages to be registered with the navigation service. So we went ahead and did that for you too. Everything's already set up. So instead of having you hours for me to deploy this to my emulator and have it spin up, I already kind of have it running for you. So this is the exact same app. So what we have here, here's the login page, new account, we create a new account, here's my back button, right? So if we're on iOS, this works perfect. Now I'm gonna go home, boom. The login page has been removed from the navigation stack, so if I were to hit back, it would actually exit the application. It's not there anymore. Here's my hamburger menu for projects and customers. I'm in projects, I can go to details. Here's my tabbed page, already generated. I can go to the customers page. Here's the toolbar item that we added right here in the top right-hand corner. I'll click that. Once again, we go to the tabbed page. So this is a huge time saver, and I'm really, really excited about this. I do want to show you that you can add this to existing projects. So let's say I have one, but I'm going to add a ton more functionality. We're going to go add a new item. We're going to go Infragistics, app map item. And then here we go. We just drag, you know what, I'm going to drag another page over, call it whatever you want, right? I'm not going to name it anything. And we could just start creating some navigation, do whatever you want, generate, and then watch what happens. Boom. There's page name 1. Just look at the app.xaml.cs, and everything's registered for navigation automatically. It just works. So that about wraps up the time I have. I'm going to hand it over to Carl so he can show you the rest. If you have any questions, I'm going to hop into the questions dialogue to answer any questions you guys have. Jason, do you want to go ahead and give Carl control?
Yep, there were actually a couple of questions, Brian, in there that you could probably handle better than anyone, so take a look, and I will now pass it off to Brian, or actually to Carl to take over. So let me change my presenter over to Carl, and Carl, you are up.
Okay, hello everyone, this is Carl Siflet, and today what I'm going to talk to you about in this short webinar is our toolbox and our visual configurators. So every time I configure a control, I'm going to rerun the app so you can see what it looks like in the configurator, and you can see what it's going to look like in the emulator. And so let's talk about the configurators first. So what is a configurator and what's the purpose of it? It's only got 3 reasons for existence. The first one is it allows you to, in seconds, visually configure one of our Infragistics data visualization controls. The second thing is it allows you to quickly modify a configured control. The third thing is it allows you to learn and discover the rich APIs that all of our data visualization controls have. All right, so without further ado, let's come down here. I'm in this app map app, and I'm going to show you the radial gauge right here. So just so you know that there's no smoke and mirrors, I have a little view model that has a property here for value, okay? And then I set up a slider that has bindings, and so that way when we run the app, we can actually adjust the value of the gauge. So let's just open this up. And then here's our configurators, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and pick a pre-configured radio gauge. I'm going to go and set my binding real quick. Oh, by the way, did you like that? And now we come over here, and it knows that I have my view model. I'm going to select my value property, create the binding. I'm going to hit apply, and I'm just going to run the app. Now, while that's running, my machine's real fast, so it'll take like 1 second for it to do. But let me go ahead and do a document format so you can see all the XAML. So when I tell you that our controls are rich, our controls are incredibly rich. Look at all these properties for the needle. Infragistics has the best. We have some really, really rich controls. Here's my radio gauge, and you can see there's a nice radio gauge, same one that we had, and you can move it around. All right, so let's dive back into configurators. What's really nice about our configurators is one, we have our own parser. So it rereads it, reloads it, and now you've, if you made any changes to the XAML here, in fact, I'll just demonstrate that. So let's make the, oh, I don't know. Yeah, let's change the needle brush to gray, to red, right? Just so you know there's no smoke and mirrors. And I forgot to start my timer, so Jason will probably gently remind me. So you can see here that the configurator, when it loaded, it changed this right here, and it changed the needle color based on that. All right, so let's talk about the configurators. What can you do with these things, right? So besides a quick set, and we have a whole bunch of them here, which is really nice, you can also set your min and max values. All right, I'm going to change my max values. So notice I have some ranges set up. So ranges, that's these things here. So you got purple and green and red. I'm going to change my max value to 100. So what the tool just did is it recalculated the ranges for you and reset, but it didn't change the shape. You didn't lose the shape bit, right? Now, the next thing that all the configurators have is we have something over here, design time data. See, that's 25. Watch this. So I'm going to change my design time data to 50. But notice over here in our properties grid, we have right here the value, and we allow you to set the binding. How cool is that, right? All right, now you can also do things. I'm going to go ahead and just take my gauge and put it back to default. So let's say you wanted to just design a gauge real quick, right? And you wanted some ranges like, I don't know, you wanted 5 ranges, all right. And then you wanted to pick the shape of what your ranges are going to look like. So let's pick like this inside thing here. And then you could pick your brushes. So if you want a set of brushes, you could come over and pick, oh yeah, I really like that. But what happens if I needed 6 ranges? Okay, so notice that the brushes, they recalculate. So what'll happen is we only had 5 brushes in our collection, so the first one repeats over here. So what you can do, you can come back over to brushes, and now look, now there are 6 of them there instead of 5. What we do is based on the ranges you have, we recalculate, and with math, we rebuild this, the number of displayed brushes. Now you can also come out here and you can change your scale. So let's say you want your scale to look like a, I don't know, speedometer. So now you got a little speedometer going on here. If you like needles, you can come in, you can change your needle. You can pick any needle you want. Oops, sorry about that. So you're able to come down here and just make any kind of changes you want from a visual perspective. By the way, all of these were created with this tool. There was no magic, like we didn't hand code anything. All right, so now what else can you do with this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a real life scenario. So let's pick this one. And I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and save. Now, what happened is our designer said, he saw what we did and he said, I want the background when the application runs to be black. Okay, well that's reasonable. Designers are allowed to do anything they want, right? So we come up here. Well, now what we have to do is we have to try to figure out if this is going to look good on a black background. So what we did is we enabled that. You can come over here and you can select your background. We even got this little advanced thing, so you can pick whatever you want, or you can just pick a simple color. So now what we see is, oops, I clicked away. So now what we can see is this control doesn't look so good on a black background, does it? All right, well, how do we fix that? Well, first thing we can do is we can come over here to this brushes selector, and we can see oh, our backing brush, that's our problem. See, it's got a lot of opacity. So why don't I just move the opacity? Aha, look at that. So now I'm going to go ahead and reset my value now, because when I recreated the control, my bindings were removed, and I think I'm going to create a feature. I was just thinking about that as I was starting. Maybe I should create a feature for that. So now I'm just going to click apply and save, and let's just run it. And again, while that thing's spinning up, I'll hit my document format command. I mean, just look at all this ammo. It'd be impossible to hand code this, right? I mean, there we go. Perfect, right? Looks just like the one that you were looking at, right? I mean, this thing's just incredible, this tool. And all the tool is really doing is showing off how awesome these controls are, right? These controls are really, really awesome. All right, so let me show you one more feature. We have this transparency feature that we created. So I come over here to my gauge, and I'm going to pick this one. So now, right here, we've got this gauge, and it's got to look good on a black background, because that's what our designer said. So the first thing I'm going to do is, since I got black, I'm going to enable transparency. Actually, I'll click here. So over here, you can see all these brushes, how they're set up right now, right? These are like our defaults that come. Now I'm going to hit enable transparency, and now it altered the other pieces so that this is now transparent. Now, so the purpose of this tool is that now you could see your brushes, and you say font brush. Okay, I have to make an adjustment on that. I need to get in the white range now. Aha, that's looking nice. All right, then I come down here, so I don't have to be a genius. I don't have to know the whole API. Minor tick brush. All right, I probably need to make that more white. All right, and then come over here, and let's make our opacity. Aha, that's starting to look good now, right? And then I can come over here, and I go to my tick brush. And again, I don't have to be a genius. I don't have to have read 50 million pages of documentation. Instead, I can visually configure my control. This is number 2 of the purpose of the configurators. I just visually configured this control, and I didn't have to know anything about the control. I just did it, right? I did it because I was enabled by tooling that knows these controls so well. So I'll just hit apply, and here we go, Control K, Control D. I mean, so if you had to hand code this, it's just a non-starter, right? You wouldn't be able to do it. So now what we've done is we've enabled customers who have partnered with Infragistics and on all their products that look at this. They can do this in seconds, right? So when we went to create these things, right, because obviously all this wasn't done in 5 minutes. After using this configurator for a few minutes, all of the people that created these, they were so good at doing this. It's just amazing. Right here, look at that. We made a, here, I'll just show you. Yeah, we're all about having fun here, right? So this, and I'm going to set my value, but this is a compass. So we actually made a compass. This is unbelievable. We made a compass, see, 0 to 359 value, and I'll just hit apply and close. And I think, let's see, Control K, Control D. So you can see, look at all the properties of this needle. So in order to get that really cool effect, our architects who wrote the controls enabled that scenario. I mean, this is just insane how rich these controls are, and then the configurators just sit on top of them and really show them off. So here we go. There's my compass. Look at that. So now I got a compass. You ever need a compass? Just grab a radial gauge. We got you covered, right? All right. So let's go back to here. Oh, that's this. I think it's the emulator. Sometimes it's like radioactive. All right. So that I pretty much covered quite a bit there. And so let's close this one down. What I want to do now is just wander over to my gauges page. And here we could see that we're inside a stack layout. We've got a linear gauge, and I pretty much got the same thing. So I'm going to open up my linear gauge. And so now my linear gauge, we have all these kind of gauges. So you have like temperature gauges and like range gauges, and you can make any kind you want. You can hand make them. You don't have to use the ones that we gave you. Now, what I'm going to do is just hand make something really cool to show you the power of this tool. Let's say that we needed ranges that went from 0 to 80, then to 90, then to 100. So I would normally type in a 3, and I would say, oh shoot, they're equidistant. That's not what I wanted, right? So because some of you are probably wondering, Carl, where's the plus button? No, we don't got no plus button. Because what I want to do is make you productive. I don't want anybody, and by the way, we have all these, it parses the text to make sure you're there. Now, check that out. Let me go to of my brushes, and then I'm just going to go ahead and reset that and check this out. Now, one of the things I didn't point out about my brushes is you look at the colors and you say, okay, there's the 3 colors you promised me, but I wanted it to go the other way. How do I do that? Oh, let's go over here. Oops, I'm sorry, clicking on the wrong thing here. I'm so excited about what we're showing off, it's crazy. So what if I wanted the green to be on that end? Oh, no problem. Just hit this button here. It reverses, if you will, all the colors, and it just makes everything possible, right? This is an incredible tool here. All right, and it's just showing off the greatness of these things right here. So we have these nice ranges. We're allowed to pretty much do anything you want with this tool. So over here, this thing has quick sets that that has these quick sets that allow you to like change how the whole control works. You can change its direction. You can change different needles. Let's say you want that big needle like that one, right? Now, here's something that I would really like to point out. You see where it says stack layout down here? All right, let me close the configurator. Right now, the configurator is in what? It's in the stack layout. So the reason I'm showing you that is because this control is now, it's rendering as if it was in a stack layout on device. So if I take this whole thing and I just, just delete it, and now I'm going to just grab myself a scroll view with a stack layout, so I can control click on my, and I'll cover that in just a second. And now I like my linear gauge back. I'm going to open that up in my configurator, and now you can see, oops. Oh, that's because Carl was not paying attention. So come up here. So now the configurator, look at this, and you say, Carl, what happened to my linear gauge? Well, that's what the linear gauge looks like in a grid. See, this is where you have to understand what's going on with the with Xamarin layout, and actually it's just XAML layout in general, right? Where the grid gives this its child all the room, where a stack panel has a different metaphor for how it lays out its controls and how it tells its children how big you can be. All right. Or how big your default can be. So now, what you're doing, if you're going to put a linear gauge inside a grid, see, we're telling it's a grid, probably the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go horizontal, oops, I'm sorry, over here in vertical, instead of fill, why don't we just do that center thing, right? Or maybe we just go ahead and reset it. So let me reset that. And then maybe what I want to do is I want to set a height request so that I know I'm in charge of the height now. See that? So again, this visual tooling allows you to do things like this, and it allows you to see the control, how it is and how it's going to be at runtime in its environment and what it's going to render like on device. So we've worked really hard to make that happen. Now, some people may be asking this question, why do you have this crazy dash line? Well, what that does, that shows the bounds of the control, which leads me into my final demo. Let's go over here to my pie chart. And we're about to go crazy now. So over here in the pie chart, what I want you to see, in my model, I have something called a pie chart item. So real simple, it's got a couple of properties, right? All right, so now in my pie chart view model, right over here, I've got a IEnumerable, a pie chart item, and then here I just have some values, and that's pretty much it, right? So now we're going to come over to Mr. Pie Chart, and let me show you a little bit about the toolbox, because I don't want to leave that out. Is first of all, here's the Xamarin Toolbox. This thing is so awesome. So one of the things you can do is when you, like if you're going to pick one of these controls and you hover over them, and you can see that it's got some extra text there, right? Now some of them have extra text, some don't, but like a scroll view, let me just come down here and I'll delete this here. So now we're going to do this in a scroll view. So that's a regular scroll view. Well, an empty scroll view is not a happy scroll view, right? So why don't I just I'll control click, and then I can put it in there, right? So now I get a scroll view with a stack layout. Or what I can do is, if I'm on scroll view, I can just double click with the control key down, and it just puts it in. So you don't have to do that dragging nonsense. And it's the same thing for all these. So when you get the product, just go play with it. So down table view, check that out. We go out and we build out a nice table view for you. Yeah, it's really cool. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm supposed to be doing a pie chart, right? All right, so let's come down here, and what I want you to see is no XMLNS up there, and I drop my pie chart in, and presto, I get my XMLNS. So I'm going to go ahead and just reform my code so that it looks nice. There's my pie chart. So by the way, configurators, all these are they're suggested actions. So you can see, like, you see you're getting a light bulb. So you can, when you click on it, anywhere in the starting tag of it, you can come over here and you can click and go configure light bulb. But what I just got so used to hitting Control Dot and then pressing Enter, it's almost second nature. All right, so now I got 4 minutes. Okay, so this is the pie chart. Now, a pie chart is unlike the other controls, right? Because a pie chart needs data in order to inflate itself. You can't see a pie chart unless there's data in it. Same with like other data charts or a data grid. So what we've enabled here is, you could see our property grid says, hey, you got to get an item source. So let's come over here, and I'm going to create a data mining, and it knows that it's a pie chart view model, and I'm going to select that property. I'm going to create my data. By the way, we're going to have a lot more in-depth videos, so don't think this is the only training you're going to get. Label member path, I'm going to go with text, and then for my legend label member path, I'm going to go with legend text. Now, you saw that thing inflate as soon as all the values were set. I mean, that's just amazing. So over here, you have standard items, and then you got 10 items, and here's 15 items. So what we did is we reflection them in an assembly, and we created this data for you dynamically, right? That's really awesome. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you how cool this pie chart is from a standpoint of setting it up. See we have this radius factor, so I can make it a little bit smaller based on my container, right? And then I'm going to come over here to my layout, and I'm going to say, I'm going to click here. I want my little labels to be out here. Oh, by the way, for your data, so you can change your data, right? So to dynamically change the values of the data. See those little numbers, how they change? So watch that. So they change instantly. So the purpose of that is to allow you as a developer to see what your pie chart's going to look like with your data. Now, kind of a unique concept, right? So max label length, let's make it 10. How is it going to lay out when you've got 10? That's kind of important. You can also see visually what it's going to look like when you have an exploded slice, and of course you can click on one and see what it's going to look like. Of course, we can completely configure all of these settings inside the property grid, right? All right, so that is pretty awesome. Now the next thing we can do, if you want, why don't we just add a legend to our chart? So you click the legend button and it sticks it in, and I'm just going to hit apply and close. And you can see that we emitted the pie chart, Control K, Control D, and you can see pie charts don't require a lot of XAML, and we've hooked up the legend. Let's press our run button. And here we go. Let's run over to our pie chart, and presto, you can see that you've got a legend. Of course, you could reposition it in your XAML, and you've got this little piece here. So this is an amazing tool that allows you to do a lot of really, really, really cool stuff. Let me show you one more feature, and I know I'm going over just slightly. Actually, you know what? It'll be in the detailed training. So I think I've given you a good overview of our toolbox. And by the way, this toolbox will just reload it whenever you load up your like if you come over here and you change your packages, it'll automatically change the packages. Again, we're going to have real detailed help videos. They'll be posted soon. And thanks for watching the webinar, and I hope you like what you've seen. Go get the free trial, of course. Have a nice day. Jason, take it back.
That's awesome, Carl. By the way, tons of questions on training. People are looking forward to your deep dive videos, and I think that is, Carl is real passionate about the learning side, and he's working, basically he told me he was going to work all weekend to create tons of videos and make sure that everyone knows how to use these tools. There's so many details, and in fact, it's too much to go into in the quick 10 minutes Carl just had, or 15 minutes. It's pretty incredible what you can actually do with the app map, the control configurators, the toolbox. It's just a real awesome experience. So one thing that I want to highlight really quick is, let me hit escape here and open up the web browser and go to the home page. Infragistics today, we relaunched our website. It's really slick. It's really beautiful. All kinds of good stuff. But one of the things I want to highlight on the Xamarin page, because some of the comments were, wow, this is awesome. Is there a sample that shows me how to actually build a Xamarin application? Well, again, yes, there is. Some of you guys may have heard of the Mu2U app through different channels. This is another creation of Carl, and I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I don't know what's going on here. Let me just double check. Okay, so the Mu2U app actually allows you to learn how to use all of the components that you're seeing in a real live reference showcase application. So you'll be able to download this Monday along with the Xamarin Ultimate UI for Xamarin that you saw today. And this is an end-to-end best practices reference app. So not only does it have all the things like, okay, I have a list, how do I click on something and show a new screen? How do I load real data into my charts? All this stuff. It's an incredible application, and this is really a showcase for, if I'm going to build a mobile app for the first time with Xamarin, go to Mu2U. This is actually what you want to use as sort of your guide. Now, the other thing is what Carl's going to do is create a bunch of tutorial videos on all the steps that we went through to build Mu2U. So this is pretty exciting, and you'll see all of this as we get towards Monday, and you can download the code on the Mu2U page. There'll be demos and code download and videos and all kinds of good stuff. So make sure you check that out when you start getting our emails on Monday morning. And then the other cool thing is everything that we demoed today, so for example, those run fast sample code, you could just get that right from the website. So you can just download all this code. There's little how-tos. So there's no smoke and mirrors here. Everything is available, and ultimately we're here to help you be successful building your Xamarin applications. If you're looking at pricing and how much all this stuff costs, if I scroll down on the Xamarin page, we've got pricing right here along with the bundled pricing for Pro and Ultimate. So make sure to look at the Infragistics.com website to learn all of this stuff. So let me go back to my slides. I'll bring this guy up. And that's it. So I kind of covered where to go, what to look for. I covered the pricing. Again, here's our email addresses. I had a typo in Carl's email on the first slide that I fixed here on this slide. Please send us your comments, your feedback. We really want to hear what you think about this tooling. This is game-changing. It's revolutionary. One of the questions was, how much caffeine did all of us have to get jacked up for this webinar, because we seem pretty excited. I mean, obviously some of us drink coffee, but we're just pumped about finally getting this to market. This has been, you know, a 6-month project to actually get here. It's been maybe over a year in the design and understanding of really what to build. And we think we have something pretty special here to help you be more productive building Xamarin applications in Visual Studio. So with that, we will end the this part of the webinar, and we'll stay on for another maybe 5 minutes for Q&A. The webinar will be posted by end of day tomorrow. It'll be in an emailer that you get next week with the link. So if you want the webinar over the weekend, send an email to Jason B at Infragistics, and I'll get that link from Jess, and we'll send it over. But I really want to thank Brian. I really want to thank Carl. They put a ton of effort into this product, along with the 100+ other folks across the product teams and the design teams and the marketing team to get this in your hands finally Monday morning. So thank you everyone for that. Thank you all for being customers, and we hope to hear your feedback on what we're shipping for Ultimate UI for Xamarin. Thanks for listening today.